Hello and welcome. It's time for the Shelley Carney Life Coach YouTube channel show. Ta-ta! And
That says to me like you didn't plan an opening there.
I'm your host, Shelley Carney. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 5 hidden secrets of podcasting for fun and profit.
So I'm going to make things easy on you. When we get back from intros, what's the first question you want me to ask you?
What the 5 hidden secrets are.
All right, that's what I'm going to ask.
Because we'll talk about them.
Yeah, all right.
And more. All right, here we are for
Toby and I want to provide value to our community, and we hope you enjoy the videos we create. We appreciate you being here to engage with us. To help us in return, you can share your ideas and appreciation by clicking on the thumbs up like button, subscribing, clicking on the bell to receive notifications, and writing a positive comment. Then share our videos with your family and friends so we can grow the channel and reach more wonderful people in the future. Thanks.
this time for sure. All right. Tonight we're talking about the 5 hidden secrets of podcasting for fun and profit.
What are the? I did when you told me about this, I'm thinking to myself, what are the secrets?
Yeah, well,
Because we talk
it's
about
'cause
them
they're
all the time, but
secret.
did you see the little picture I found for your
Yeah, the doggy was
little
keeping
puppy?
a secret.
Yeah, I was keeping a secret.
These ladies are telling each other secrets.
So, do you want to go to the next slide, or you want
I
to stay
do.
and do your intro from here?
No, go.
Go. All right.
So,
tell me when.
when you're thinking about your home-based business, does this ring any bells? Does your business look like this? Well, they can't see the picture because it says like, share, and subscribe.
Oh, sorry.
They're paying their bills. There you go. Okay. Does that feel familiar? Or how about this? Drowning in tech? Or how about this? Screaming into the void. Nobody hears you. Nobody knows you exist as an entrepreneur and a business owner.
Feels like yelling into the void, doesn't it, sometimes?
Yeah. Does it feel that way for anybody here? Oh, well, what if you could turn that around and start making money hand over fist?
Hand over fist.
That's
That's
yeah.
what they're doing right there.
Money,
Hand over
money,
fist
money.
thing.
Well, I believe that podcasts are an ideal medium for sharing ideas, expanding your brand, connecting with an audience, and reaching potential customers.
What gives you that belief? How have you come by that belief?
Well, I will back it up with all sorts of things.
But introduce yourself first.
I am Shelley Carney. I'm a podcasting and live streaming host, a coach and consultant, a personal development expert, an interviewer and podcaster, an author, presenter, an introvert, and a 9 on the Enneagram. I have some familiarity with being a podcaster and listening to podcasts and how that makes me feel when I listen to those podcasts and how I feel about when I am podcasting and how they inform each other, right? When you listen to the podcasts of other people, it informs you as to what you like, what you appreciate about a podcast, and that way you can put it into your own.
What are your top 3 favorite podcasts?
I like the Mind Your Business podcast by James Wedmore. I like to listen to Brendan Burchard. And then the third one kind of fluctuates between whatever my current interest is. Right now I'm listening to one called Traffic Makers that's about growing an audience on Facebook.
The reason I ask is because you indicated in what you said just before that there was an emotional component. You said how they make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
What did you mean by that?
Well, when you listen to a podcast, you become loyal to that person who's doing the podcast, and you trust them more quickly because they're in your head.
All right.
So, what are the 5 hidden secrets of podcasting for fun and profit, you ask? It's not advertising. It's not turning your podcast into a platform to sell other people's products. It's not begging for donations and, please send me money. It's not that. That's not how you have fun and make a profit at podcasting.
So is that a requirement that you not only have fun, but you make a profit? What if you're just having fun?
It's a
but not-
requirement if you want to keep doing it.
All right. Okay.
And it's not selling merch like t-shirts and toys and things. That's not the way to make the profit. I mean, these are all things that people do, but these are not the secrets of doing it well.
So when are you going to tell us the secrets?
Keep going. It's 5 simple things.
And they are?
Well, first, let's talk about what a podcast is, just to make sure we're all on the same page with what a podcast is. A podcast is an online audio broadcast that you can download very simply and easily onto your phone, or you can listen on your computer. You listen on the go with your smartphone while you're doing anything else, walking, or you could be driving. You can listen to it on your phone or in your car. You can also listen at home with a smart speaker like an Alexa or Google. You can consume it while you're multitasking. Maybe you're doing the dishes. I like to do it when I'm on a walk. That's when I normally listen to podcasts, and sometimes while I'm cooking. Niche and general topics, they're all there. You can find pretty much any topic in a podcast, and it's easy to subscribe. So if you really like something and you want to hear more and more of it, it's just simple to subscribe, and your phone will automatically download the next new one as it comes.
I'm trying to think where I like listening to podcasts because I'm a big fan. Now, the podcasts that I listen to are literally 180 degrees diametrically opposed from what you listen to. But that's because of the nature of our respective beasts. I'm an INTJ or ENTJ and an Enneagram 3. But my top places to listen are on my walking workout, not my cycling workout, because I really feel like I need my senses all around me. Driving, any place, like even if it's a short trip, but especially on longer trips, I like listening to them. And when I'm doing chores around the house that don't involve a lot of noise making, because they're easy to listen to, and because I always feel like I'm learning something.
Yeah.
Mine tend to be political in nature, but I always feel like I'm learning something. And I think I like audiobooks for the same reason. I don't need to be sitting in one place. I can be doing something else.
Yeah.
Driving down to Albuquerque is literally an hour's worth of reading back and forth.
Sure.
If I can listen to the audiobook, and it's also a distraction. You're not focused on all the other things that could be bugging you in life.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, there's a lot of great training on, that people put out online and videos and that sort of thing. But I don't like just sitting in front of the computer doing nothing while I'm watching this training. That's why I prefer it in a podcast format, so I can listen to it while I'm walking, so that I get exercise while I'm learning and listening.
Well, let's talk about this, because part of the problem is that you're using a set of slides here. Does the fact that using slides, which stimulates the idea that you need to be there to see the slides, make for a good podcast? Will this be a good podcast as well?
Well, as long as I read everything that's on the slide, and that's why I do the slides, is number one, to
cue you.
To cue me.
Yeah.
And to give people something visual to help them understand the concept quickly. But then I read the words so the people who are listening on the podcast later will
don't have to be that. They can keep up. Yeah. All right.
So this is from the Infinite Dial. Edison Research did this, and this is just in the last couple of months they put this out. Observation of data they collected on podcasting and what they call audio listening. Weekly online audio listening has hit an all-time high with an increase in reach, also accompanied by a 1-hour rise in weekly time spent listening over the previous year. So podcasting continues to grow and grow and grow.
A 1-hour rise in weekly time spent over the previous year is a lot of time, right? They're finding additional time. They're finding in their lives. Now that may be very much driven by the pandemic,
Right.
because you have more kind of free time on your hands.
And they feel that the combination of the pandemic and the purchase of these smart speakers has gone up. So
Mhm.
people are listening more and more at home. And with Spotify getting more and more into podcasting, it's grown in that way.
My the East Coast daughters are very much podcast listeners, and I think it's because they work out. They're all not workout freaks, but they consistently work out, and I think they got used to the idea of having the podcast in their ear while they're doing it. So,
are you ready to dive into podcasting? Ta-da! There we go. Number 1. Okay, so these are the 5 hidden secrets, right? Number 1, be persistent. That's the secret number 1. You must be persistent, because of over 2 million podcasts that are available, 12% of those have only 1 episode. 6% have only 2 episodes. And 50% have 14 or fewer episodes. People try it for a while. They don't get immediate gratification, so they quit, right? You got to be persistent. The people who've been at this for 4 or 5 years consistently have grown really big. Then there's people who, hop around and they try, well, this podcast was fun, but now I'm interested in something else. Our friend Grant is like that. He's done many, many different podcasts since 2004, and he's jumped around a lot. So he hasn't, if he'd focused all of his eggs in one basket, maybe that one channel would have grown really big. But he wanted to move around. So not only being persistent, but consistent and focused. If you stay with that one topic, that one audience that you've defined, and really hone in and then continue to work at creating more and more content in that podcast. That is secret number 1. And it's number 1 because I think it's the most important.
So, I was interviewed this afternoon by Kat Cachado, and the last question she asked me was, if you had, what advice could you give to people who are interested in starting their podcasts? We'd already talked about the legacy live streamers, the encore entrepreneurs. And I said, sit down and ask yourself the following questions. Number 1, why are you doing this? Why do you want a podcast? Mm-hmm. Because if it's something other than, if it's making money, and it has nothing to do with your passion, unless your passion is making money, then don't do it. How much time are you willing to invest? Because it's going to take time. How much money are you willing to invest? Because it does require some investment. What are you going to talk about? And in what format are you going to talk about it? Is it going to be interviews or presentations or whatever? Until you have answers to those questions, you can't get that. One of the failures in all this is because those 12% of the people who've only made 1 episode, mm-hmm. they didn't do those 5 things beforehand. So
that's right. And they lost
interest
in they moved on to another shiny object.
Or they didn't
get that immediate gratification of a bunch of likes and
and I think that's the other thing that I wanted to mention, that you mentioned gratification. Mm-hmm. And the simple fact of the matter is, if you don't know if your gratification is, let's say I have an interest in microphotography, And I get gratification in sharing not only my photographs, but how I capture the technology that I use to capture the photographs. That's my immediate or instant gratification, to see people respond to that. But if I have a shot that they don't like, or if I do a show that they don't like, it can't make any difference. It's still my passion. And I think you go into it telling yourself, I think it was, I'm trying to remember who said it. Oh, it was Dr. Brown, one of our clients. We asked him, why are you doing this? And he said he wanted to leave a legacy, right? That's why he's doing it, because he wants to talk to all these doctors that are doing different things in various areas of research. And he wants to turn that into his legacy, that he brought these doctors out from, the depths of their research laboratories and got them to talk for an hour about what they were doing. So make sure it fits with what your passions are. Except if your passion is making money. Podcasting is not a place unless you're Michael, what's his name? Michael Cohen, who has a podcast.
Unless you're a celebrity.
Yeah.
In other
He's
words.
a celebrity, and right away he got sponsors and he's making money with his podcast.
Right.
None of us are like that. We have to pursue our passion, and we have to do it for reasons other than making money. Although there are other ways than to generate income as a result of your podcasting.
So we want to go, as entrepreneurs, we want to go from unknown to known. And Robert Garish said about podcasting, you just need one person to listen, get your message, and pass it on to someone else. And you've doubled your audience. So adding into your audience one at a time is as much as you can expect. And if you get more than that, great, but don't expect it. And you'll eventually get known.
Yeah, that's what it takes.
Number 2, provide quality content. This is secret number 2. So one of the things that they asked in this survey that I was talking to you about earlier was why people listen to podcasts. What is the reason for them to choose a podcast and listen to it? And the number one reason for 75% of the people was acquiring new knowledge. They want to learn things on the go, right? That's why I listen. I love to learn more about how to grow my business. Toby likes to learn about what's going on in politics. My husband does that, and then he also has other things he listens to that he likes to learn about a topic, perhaps history or conspiracy theories or whatever it is that he's listening to.
Darknet Diaries.
So yeah. Number one reason, acquiring new knowledge. So keep that in mind when you're putting your podcast together, that people, number one, want to acquire new knowledge. Number 2, they want to feel inspired. And number 3, they want entertainment. So they don't want you to be boring while you're giving them the new knowledge. They want you to entertain them while you do it. So infotainment, I guess, would be the best way to go about it.
That's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I do listen to some podcasters that are primarily comedians, but they use their comedy to spread some kind of word. In one case, Jason Banks uses his comedy to talk about hunger in and around the large cities and what can be done about it. So that's interesting to listen to him.
Mark Maron has a quote here.
Speaking of comedians.
The medium of podcasting and the personal nature of it, the relationship you build with your listeners and the relationship they have with you, they could be just sitting there chuckling and listening. There's nothing like that.
So Mark is a comedian. He's a stand-up comedian. He has a off-center sense of humor, and but if you're kind of in his age group, I feel like he's not as old as I am, but I feel like he's in my age group, and he has that age group's vision of what's right and what's wrong. But he started a podcast from his garage, And he used to do the podcast from there, and he would invite guests to come to his garage and do the podcast, up to and including one of his most famous podcasts was the one that he did with President Obama when President Obama was in office. And he has some great guests. He has a very subtle sense of humor, but they talk about subjects that are important to people who who have concerns about how the world is changing, how America is changing, how their communities are changing, and what they can do about it. He's a great listen. His podcast is a great listen, especially because of the guests that he gets.
Yeah.
He gets really cool guests.
Secret, and we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes.
Good.
Secret number 3, know your audience. What does that mean? It means you need to understand who it is you're speaking to. For those of us who are business people, we know that we need to have an ideal client or an avatar. We need to have identified who is the person that I work with best, right? So that we can speak to their needs and their interests. For us, it's people 50 years and older who are encore entrepreneurs and legacy live streamers. They have a strong interest or desire to be live streaming, podcasting, blogging, and sharing their message with the world. So we know our audience. We know that about them. We know where they hang out on social media. We know some of the things they like and don't like, the things that get in their way when they're trying to achieve their goals. These are the things you need to know about your audience when you're putting together a podcast, because 54% of podcast listeners are more likely to consider buying from a brand after hearing its podcast. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're putting out a podcast so that you can share your message and method with the world so that they will know, hey, if I need this kind of service, I can go to this person. And 54% of the podcast listeners are more likely to buy your service after listening to you. Podcast listeners are more likely to also follow brands on their social media sites. So if somebody hears you on a podcast and likes what you're doing and subscribes, then the next thing they're going to do is, if you tell them, follow me on Instagram or find me on Facebook, they're going to do that because they want to have more of a connection with you and some of the other materials that you may be talking about in your podcast. Miranda Katz said, people are really listening and want to consume all of the content that is there and available. There's a level of dedication that comes from podcast listeners that you don't otherwise find. And now the numbers prove it. Podcasts aren't a bubble, they're a boom. And that boom is only getting louder. So podcasting creates loyalty in your listeners. They hear you frequently. They hear your ideas over and over again. Then, you say what you believe and they resonate with that and they come over to your side and they can be easily persuaded because they look to you as a leader, a thought leader.
So the fact that it is a boom and not a bubble, I think surprised a lot of people. And I don't want to say necessarily that it was the pandemic that created the boom mentality. It was moving along pretty well before the pandemic, but like everything else during the pandemic, it amplified, to use an audio term, it amplified the effect of podcasting. And the pandemic has done a lot of that. We talked about earlier how it has amplified digital marketing, the use of digital marketing, amplified the expectations of the customer in how they deal with it. So that's one of the things that's happened with podcasting that surprised a lot of people. They thought it was
part of it too is they surveyed those people and they said, if you don't listen to podcasts, why don't you?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, because I can't find it. I don't know how to work the app,
right.
Or, it was the technology of it.
As usual.
But now with these, the rising levels of people purchasing the Alexa and the Google Hub or Nest, and having those smart speakers in their homes, and it becomes that much easier to say, Alexa, I want a podcast on blah, 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 and Alexa will find it for you, or your Google will help you to find that. And so it's easier. There's that technology bar has been lowered.
I think that's true for Google for most people. It's not as consistent with me because, my Google and I have, a difficult relationship. So I can't always guarantee that she's going to play my podcast.
But Siri
with
can
that.
find it.
Siri always finds them. But Google, she wants answers to questions. Why this? Why is your interest in this? So I've got to answer those questions for her.
Secret number 4, utilize the trends. And here are a couple of examples of trends that were found in this survey I was telling you about. Podcast listening is growing fastest among older Americans. More than 25% of all 55 plus consumers in the United States are listening to podcasts, and it's going up very quickly. So what does that tell us? It tells us now is a prime time to start creating podcasts aimed at the 55 plus group, right? There are a lot of podcasts already aimed at younger groups because they are early adopters and they're already listening to podcasts. But which demographic is growing the fastest? It's the over 55. So
there's two
take
benefits
advantage
to
of
that.
that.
Not only is it a rapidly growing demographic, but it's a financially secure demographic. So
for the most part,
yeah,
not always, but
not
for the most part.
I mean, on the average,
Yeah.
right. And so that gives them more purchasing power if you do have sponsors, or if you're selling a product line, or if you want memberships. But the other thing that I noticed about this group, mostly because I'm one and you're one, is that, and I'm going to have to explain this. I'm not sure my explanation is good. I'm going to use myself as an example. As I went through life, I was very much focused on the development of a very particular type of career, and what I learned always was in support of what I invested my time in learning, was always in support of that career, right? And so now that I'm older and I don't have to worry about a career, I want to learn about other things. I want to learn about geology and the behavior of sand and microscopy, things like that. And I think a lot of seniors, this is an opinion, I don't have the research to support it, but I know that seniors that I deal with, the people in my age group, and they're the same way. They just want to learn other things. And sometimes if they find a podcast that supports that need to learn, whether it's political in my case, or marketing and, digital marketing in your case, it's just new learning. And I think that's really good for them. And I think it's good for the podcasting community.
Well, I'm going to generalize here and say that most men are probably looking for things like you said, a hobby interest, to learn more about that. And I would say most women in this age group are looking for a community. They're looking for people like me, or have the same problems as I do, whether that's health, wanting to lose weight, that sort of thing, or if it's family issues, you're going through a divorce, or you have adult children with certain issues. They're looking for community, somebody who can support them. Now that they are at an age where they have an empty nest, maybe they have a husband at home and maybe they don't. They might be feeling lonely. They might be in between friends. They may have lost their work friends and they haven't gotten personal friends, outside of work yet. So they're hunting for that community, something that resonates with them.
That makes perfect sense to me. I didn't think about it in that way, but now that you say it, that makes perfect sense, because if I think of my relationships, on one side, my side of the relationship was whatever the next hobby was. And the other side of the relationship was, what do we need to do to make sure we fit into the community and that our neighbors are, and we're going this. And it was interesting that you can identify with that.
So let's look at some more statistics from the Edison research. The average time spent listening to online audio This is for people over the age of 12, weekly online audio listeners. And in 2008, the average time spent listening to online audio was 6 minutes and 13 seconds. And the peak was in
19.
2019 at 16:43. And I'm going to guess that's probably because it was a lot of politics and getting ready for the election. And then this year, 2021, we are at 16 minutes, 14 seconds. So that is very helpful to understand that most people are going to listen to your podcast for an average of 16 minutes. So if you're putting out hour-long podcasts, you may lose a lot of people after the first quarter hour.
So what's even more interesting to me is that is inversely proportional to video watch time, which over the years has decreased. Yeah, has continued to decrease, which is why Instagram Shorts and TikTok have been so successful in the way that they have. I remember having conversations or doing presentations in the mid 2000s about how video watch time had fallen from an average of 12 minutes to an average of 9 minutes and it continued to fall. So it's proportionally inverse to what you're saying here.
And I think part of that is because the more videos there are that exist, the less time we want to spend on each one of them, right?
No, that's the whole TikTok model. The whole TikTok model is you get to watch for up
Quantity,
to,
rather
you get to watch for up to 60 seconds, although they now have the new 3-minute videos for the more popular content producers, but you get to watch for up to 60 seconds, or you scroll up, you know. So it's an interesting little model, and it fits with where we are right now.
Yeah, but say there was only 10 people producing content on that channel.
Yeah,
the videos would be longer. Right?
Yeah.
Online audio brand used most often. So this is the Spotify, Pandora, Google Play, YouTube Music, Apple Music, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and other. And as you can see, it goes up if people own a smart speaker like the Amazon Alexa or the Google Nest. The Google Nest device, half the people listen to their online audio on Spotify because it's easy to do with Google, with the Nest. And as you can see, total for Spotify is 31. So Spotify has grown exponentially over the past couple of years in podcasting. They started off with music and then being able to do your own playlist of music. And now they've gone into podcasting pretty heavily. So they've become number one place for people to listen. Now, of course, this is people listening at home. And it seems, again, like that's really grown even more than, listening on your phone when you're out and about, which would be your Apple or your Google Play probably. Those have dropped down to 11, 13, and 5%.
So I switched away. So I was a long time YouTube Music user. Paid the monthly $15 a month. And back in October of last year, I switched over to Spotify. And I did it for two reasons. Number one, it's easier to playlist. They already have kind of the playlist created. And if you look at my playlists, it's 60s music, 70s music, 80s music, 90s music, 2000 plus music, country and Western, rock orchestrations, things like that. So you can just give it that, you can tell it that, and you can add it to the list. And then you can go to Google and say, Google, play my 60s playlist from Spotify. And the nice thing about Google is, the good thing about Google is they've made that connection. They've also made the connection. Google has made the connection. I'm speaking from Google Nest's perspective. I'm sure Alexa does the same thing. But they've also made the connection to my Sirius XM. So I can say, play this channel from my Sirius XM. And I've noticed that I'm watching progressively less TV
Mhm.
and listening more, because it gives me the ability to
Be mobile.
be mobile. Yeah,
Mhm.
to be able to do things around the house while you're doing it. You're not stuck on the couch.
Yeah. So I thought this was a good thing to know, to take into consideration, because Spotify owns
Anchor.
Anchor FM, and that's where we choose to put our podcasts up for distribution. So they automatically get into Spotify. And because it is the number one used brand for online audio, we're already with the number one brand.
Right. And that was a good place to be. That wasn't, of course, our decision. We made a decision to go with Anchor FM because they were not as much a podcast host as they were a podcast distribution site. That's their big claim to fame. But then when Spotify acquired them, that was an indication that they were on track with the right business model. You keep looking over my shoulder, and I feel like
I
somebody's.
feel like there's a hair here, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the light on my
Oh,
glasses.
it is. There is not a hair there.
Oh, okay.
But you were looking over my shoulder and think, is there somebody sneaking up on me?
No.
All right. Next slide.
Oh, before we get to secret number 5, I just wanted to take a moment to invite all of you to join us on our Facebook group, Leveraging Your Content. In the group, we provide this training on podcasting, live streaming, blogging, and how to leverage your content. It's specifically made for adult entrepreneurs, coaches, and educators who are 50 years and over. And we offer entry-level technology solutions, keeping it simple, using what you have and working up from there. And then it's a great place to network and collaborate as well. And we'll be taking our future interviews from people who are in our Facebook group. So
for messages and methods.
Yes. So join our Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/leveraging your content. And that will be in the description box of the video and the podcast. Number 5, promote and leverage. This is the secret to getting your podcast audience growth, is to get it out there, let people know it exists and what it is and what you talked about and what's going on there. So share it across all your social media platforms, create a Facebook page and a group so that you can interact with your podcast listeners, because sometimes they want to talk too and not just listen. Post on YouTube. If you're just going straight to audio and you don't have video, that's okay. You can still post that on YouTube if you want to go that way. Or you can do what we do and do a live stream, then take the audio and put it on a podcast. So the more it gets out there in all these different platforms, the more people will be able to find it. Set up a blog, super easy. I'm on Anchor FM, and when I post my blog and I hit publish, it says, do you want to post this as a blog post? Yes, I do. And it just takes that audio and embeds it into a blog post, and then it puts my show notes there, and then I can add or change anything I want. Super easy.
Barely an inconvenience.
Yeah. And then ask your guests, if you have guests on your show, ask them to share, to subscribe, to promote it, to really help you to get it out there. And that way, as you grow, you'll be able to get bigger. And when I say bigger guests, I mean guests with larger audiences to come onto your show. And each time you get a guest with a larger audience, your audience will grow as well. Social media brand used most often. So this is really great to know what age group are you really wanting to speak to. And we speak mostly to the 55 plus. They mostly use Facebook. 70% of those people 55 plus use Facebook as their main social media brand. 35 to 54 is 60%, so still pretty high. The number 2 is Instagram, which is also owned by Facebook. So easy to use both of those. Snapchat is next, but it's a small sliver there. Then you've got TikTok, which is growing. but not so much for the 55 plus, more for the 12 to 34 group. And then you've got your Twitter, which is just holding its own, but not growing much. And then you've got Pinterest, which does pretty good with things that are visual, maybe not as much with podcasting. And then WhatsApp is really big in Europe. It's kind of caught on here, but not huge. And again, it's pretty good for messaging. And again, Facebook owns WhatsApp. So the top three put together, you put Facebook, you put Instagram, and you put WhatsApp together, and you've covered that Facebook group really well. So something to keep in mind for when you're promoting your podcast. Visibility and credibility is what we're trying to build here. Tim Page said, a podcast is a great way to develop relationships with hard to reach people, such as when Mark Maron had President Obama on his podcast. Do you think that Mark Maron would have otherwise reached out to President Obama and he would have gotten to have a conversation with him about what are we going to do? Why would I be there? What's this about? But when you have a podcast, it's so much easier to reach out to people and say, I would love to have you on my podcast. And they know that that's only going to, elevate them if you have a quality podcast. So makes it easier to reach out. So here are the podcasting secrets that we've taught today. Be persistent, provide quality content, know your audience, utilize trends, promote and leverage your content, and have fun. And that one I just tacked on there. If you're not having fun, it's not worth doing. So have fun along the way. Please do connect with us. Schedule a free consulting call to define your social media goals. I can't say the word. Assess your specific needs. Clarify your best options and get the help that you need to launch your own podcast. And that would be messagesandmethods.com, ShellyCarney.com, or tunis.com. You can find all of our links at those three sites. Messages and Methods has all of the ones you would need. But if you can't remember that, just put my name in.
Or mine, or my first initial and my last name.
That's right. We would love to get together with you and talk podcasting some more. So thank you all for joining us today. Hope that this was valuable to you. And if you would like to reach back and speak with us on this topic, please do so.
For Shelly Carney, life coach, I'm Toby Younis.
And I'm Shelly Carney. And we will see you again next week.
Yeah, we'll have a full list of stuff for you next week starting on Tuesday. All right. Thanks for joining us today.